Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new build video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be taking a look at the adventure, Warden solo build. So this is my first release of solo builds in a while, and I basically took a break from solo play for a while, like solo builds for a while, because I was playing tanks and everything else. But just like the old Templar build, solo tank build, this is the same thing. It's just I went through and I reiterated a lot of the things about the build to kind of make it a little bit more aggressive, I guess you could say. So this build utilizes a very simple setup, and all solo builds can be built off the same premise almost. If you want to make a solo build for a different class, or you want to utilize something from this idea into another solo build, you can. But this is the Warden solo build, so it works a little bit different than the other classes, and in fact is probably one of the best classes for solo play because of its group utility that it has built into it, and its own like self buffs, things like that. It's just really good for solo play. So let's go ahead and take a look at the build itself. 12k magicka. You don't need a lot of magicka for this build to work because you only use one magic ability. And so having a smaller pool kind of helps. We are running 26k health with a 29k stamina for this build. 21k weapon damage, or 2100 weapon damage with a 41% critical. Now that's all the time. That crit doesn't change. It doesn't get any better, it doesn't get any worse. It's always going to be that. So moving on down the line, we are running a 20k spell resistance with a 19k physical. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys this real quick so you can see. So buffed up, we have a 26k spell with a 26k physical. You want it about this high for it to be really solo friendly. So, and if you guys didn't realize, when you dodge roll and you have your buff up, you actually get a little bit more resistances. So it doesn't last long, but it kind of helps. So yeah, it's a really good like solo setup though, this is. So moving down the line, we have the Lady Mundstone. We are running Major Savagery from Expert Hunter on both bars. We are running Wild Guardian. And then these buffs are just the normal buffs. So the Wild Guardian is our bear companion. We are running Dubious Cameron Throne. This gives us max stamina, max health, and then stamina recovery. Stamina recovery is essential to this build. Because of the way stamina recovery works, whenever you do a heavy attack, okay, first off, stamina recovery. Every 2 seconds while you're in combat, you get this much recovery, 1553. A heavy attack takes 2 seconds, and a heavy attack gives you the stamina recovery, the base stamina recovery, 1553, plus whatever your stamina recovery is, percentage-wise. So, like, for me, my stamina recovery with this build is 65% with the heavy attack. So I actually get this number with 65% added to it. And I get that back when the attack hits. But within that attack frame, it'll be 2 seconds. So I also get the 1553 with it. So I actually get a lot more resources back because of it. And I'll show you that here in a second. We're going to go up here and take on this boss. And before I show you the rest of the build, I just want you to see how this build works before I show you the skills, the gear, and all that. So we're actually going to take on a world boss here. Alright, so he got me with his ads, but that's okay. Usually I can solo this guy pretty easily, but I'm just a little out of my element right at the moment. And I apologize for the coughing, guys. I've been doing a lot of stuff around my house and getting a lot of dust in the air, so yeah. Overall, the build works out really good. It's really good for dolmen play, it's really good for solo play, it's really good for all that kind of stuff, but you really need to make sure that this is always up. You want to make sure your bear is up all the time, because it is a huge part of your damage. As you saw there, I was doing roughly about 16k DPS on that world boss, which isn't much to most people, but it does help out to have good survivability, good damage output, good, you know, healing coming in, that kind of thing for the build. Now, Rally is the other one that I usually run. I'll run it instead of Vigor, but then I really don't need my Bull Niche. So, this is what I used to give me Major Brutality, so I don't really need this. There's a lot of different ways you can set this build up. I just prefer it this way, because it works a little bit easier for me. So, let's go ahead and go over the gear. Onto the gear, we are running 2-piece Salines, medium helm, light shoulders, or heavy shoulders, and because of the setup, so heavy and medium, okay? Infused on the big pieces, so the helm, the chest, the legs, they're infused. As you can see, we're running Night Mothers with this build, and Night Mothers gives you a 5-piece bonus that's really good. When you deal critical damage, you reduce the enemy's physical resistance. So this gives you greater physical resistance on top of your subterranean assault, which applies major breach and major fracture. So not only do you get that 5k penetration, you also get another 2k on top of it, equaling out to about 8,000 penetration against the enemy. And that's really good on like normal play, like in dungeons, open world, that kind of thing, because that's 8,000 penetration, which is almost equivalent to their 9,100 that they have in resistances. So you almost reach penetration cap, which is really good. The reason we run Salines is that extra damage from the bear that it does. It's a 15% chance it summons a bear, and that bear's damage is really high. A 16,080 is really good, so that's just a good amount of extra burst damage that you can do. This plays on bursts with dots in the background. So, like I said, Night Mother's Gaze. Now, the smaller sets are like this, by the way. So we have reinforced shoulders because it's heavy. We have reinforced boots because they're heavy, and that's going to give you the best resistances. Nirnhoned will not work with the boots and the shoulders if they're heavy. Nirnhoned works on the light belt and the medium or the heavy gloves. So these are both Nirnhoned, and then the rest is infused, these 3 pieces, and then 2 reinforced, 2 Nirnhoned. And this is going to give you the greater resistance amount. Now onto the jewelry, we are running a 3-piece endurance set and 2 weapon damage enchants on them with a stamina recovery. Now this set already gives you 193 stamina recovery with the extra 169 from here. That's how we reach this high stamina recovery point, is because of that. Because we have those 2 things of recovery there. Onto the weapon, we are running... Now these are the only builds, guys, that I'm releasing that are using Master, Maelstrom, Asylum, all that kind of stuff. So we are running a Master 2-handed battle axe, and as you can read what it says, increases the direct damage of cleave. Damaged cleave deals by 1,500 for each enemy hit in its cone, up to a maximum of 9,000 damage. So it does a lot of damage output. We also have a frost enchant on here. Now the frost enchant on here, not only does it do damage, but it also has a chance to apply minor maim for 4 seconds, which helps with like mitigating damage. That's why we can get away with the lower resistances. But it doesn't proc all the time, but when it does, it helps. Moving on to the bow, we are running a Maelstrom bow. Now the Maelstrom bow increases the damage of volley by 161 each tick, and the bonus increases by 56 every time the volley ticks. So for each time that your Endless Hail ticks for damage, it will tick extra damage, and it grows in strength. The Brawler, or Cleave, we use Brawler for a damage shield, but Cleave will also give you that 9,000 extra damage. So that's why the master weapon and the Maelstrom work. Now, you don't have to use a Maelstrom bow if you don't have it. If you have a master's bow, it's just as good with this build. So you can use a master two-handed axe with a master bow. Now, the reason we're running the axe, and I'm going to kind of go over all the passives with you guys. The reason we're running a two-handed axe is for one of the passives called heavy weapons. So if you read here, it says axes grant you a melee attack, grant your melee attacks 16% chance to apply a bleed, dealing X amount of extra damage. Now, that can give you damage when you do a light or heavy attack. This can also does bleed damage, and it applies that damage shield. And then this does a huge amount, well, a large amount of burst damage. And this does a dot. This does a dot. So you get a lot of dot damage, but a lot of burst as well, because your bear is also burst damage. So you get a good mix of it. And the Grizzly's attack does an additional 21% of damage. So not just only is it its ultimate, but its attacks as well. After you utilize the ultimate, it'll get 8 seconds where it gains 21% additional damage. Now, a lot of people think that 21% is all the time. It's kind of hard to tell, honestly, watching. And I've done a lot of parsing, and it's kind of hard to tell. Unless you slow down, like watch a video in slow motion, can you see where they get that 21% damage. And it is very powerful. And I don't know if it is when you activate their you know, the Guardian Savagery attack, the 8 seconds from that, or if it's just something they get consistent. It's kind of, like I said, it's just hard to tell. So with the abilities, you do want to make sure you get all the passives here, guys, on the class. Just grab them all, even if you're not using it. Same thing with two-handed. Make sure you grab all the two-handed passives, the bow passives, and then when it goes to the armor, grab the 3 for the light armor, because you are wearing 5-1-1 setup. Grab the top 2 and the bottom 1, and then on the heavy armor, grab the top 3. Moving on to the world skills, you don't have to do this setup, but I do. I grab these 2, Soul Summons and Soul Lock. And then down through the Fighters Guild, make sure you get all the Fighters Guild stuff. Mainly for Expert Hunter, because you can equip that and you will get 3% more weapon damage all on both bars. So that's one of the reasons why we have it. Now, I did unlock Flawless Dawnbreaker, because if you want to, you can use Flawless Dawnbreaker, and you can use the class Green Balance, Secluded Grove. If you want to make this more tankish for like dungeon play, you can. I just didn't unlock this. Alright, so going on down the line, Mage's Guild, you just need Persuasive Will. And then onto the Undaunted, make sure you get the 2 Undaunted passives. You can unlock the Taunt if you're going to do some tanking in a dungeon or something. And then make sure you get Spike Bone Shield. Moving over here to the Assault skills, you can use Resolving Vigor, but if you don't have Resolving Vigor, you can get the Fungal Growth Stamina version. And you can use this to heal you, but you're going to be using it more often. With this, you kind of apply and forget. This one, you have to kind of keep casting. Racial skills, make sure you grab all your passives, racial passives. You can choose any race for this, as long as you get the health to about 25k and dump the rest into stamina. That's all you have to do. You can use any race, including Argonian. And it works out either way. So going down the line, alchemy, medicinal use, and then provisioning. I just grabbed these 2 just for the fun of it. But the build itself is a really, really cool build for, like I said, solo play. Even when you're just like doing stuff like this. Let's say this little minor event going on up here. So it works out pretty good. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not the... It's a matter of just knowing how to play the build. If you know how to play it, it works out really good. And the Warden is amazing for solo play. And that's why I call this the adventure build. Now we're going to go and take a look at the champion points. Champion points are very similar to my tank setups. 37 to Ironclad, 37 in thick skin. And both these give you 15% reduced damage, from one from damage over time, one from direct damage. Then we have 43 into hardy, 43 into elemental expert, or elemental defender, both giving you 10%. We have 16 in expert defender, and then 56 into bastion. Now we are running quick recovery here to 8 points. Also, before I forget, this is a heavy armor build, so you do have to run it with heavy armor. Alright, moving on. 23 into warlord, 16 into bashing focus. Both these give you 10% reduced break free, reduced bash costs, and then 4%, 4 points in here giving you 2% reduced sprint costs, which you really aren't going to be sprinting much. 75 into mooncalf, this gives you 14% stamina recovery. 43 into tenacity, increasing your stamina return from fully charged heavy attacks. Like I was saying about this build and having that higher stamina recovery, when I get my stamina recovery maxed out, because of wearing heavy armor, I get 25%, 30% base, so that's 55, and with this it's 65% return, so it helps out a lot. Moving on over here, we have 56 in the Shadow Ward, 23 into tumbling. Alright, moving on. Nothing in this tree. Over here we have 35 in the physical weapon expert, giving us 20% increase to our light and heavy attacks. We do focus on a heavy attack rotation on the two-handed side, on the two-handed axe. We do heavy attack rotation. On the bow, we do a light attack rotation. So we light attack through the whole entire bow side, flip bars, do the first initial brawler, heavy attack, bone shield, heavy attack, subterranean assault, heavy attack, and then we do the vigor. Usually by the time you get the vigor off, you know, you're on the back bar and you're light attacking through the back bar. No resource issues. Next we have 56 in Master at Arms. All light and heavy attacks, initial hits with two-handed, are direct damage. So in a lot of our abilities, subterranean assaults, initial hit is direct damage. So both of those are all of that is connected to this. So light and heavy attacks 20%, 40%, and then over here we get another 10%, making all light and heavy attacks initial hits 50% more damage. Now I did do something a little different this time. I put 51 into Thaumaturge. This increases our bleed damage done from brawler and poison injections poison damage by 19%, which is 1% off from having 56 into here. Next we have 51 into Precise Strikes. This increases our critical strike damage by 19%. This just allows us better damage output overall. Now we are, in the next update, which is really cool because I did the math on this, in the next update we are getting another 10 points in after Dragon Bones. So we're going to get 10 points in Dragon Bones, and in the next update, the next chapter or DLC release, we are getting another 10 points. If you split it between these two, you will get 56 here and 56 here, making it 20% and 20%. Over the next year from that date of that release of the next chapter, 1 year later, you will have enough points to put into piercing to make it out to where you have Crusher built into your character. A year's time, we get 40 points. So I'm just going to show you guys this. So this build in a year's time will go up to 3,620, which is the equivalent of Crusher. Because we get 4 updates a year. That's 40 points per tree. So we'll get 40 for blue, 40 for red, 40 for green. 40 points into there. And that we'll also have this for these. So if we take this up 5, this up 5, we'll have 20, 20. We'll have a good percentage amount of points distributed, and then we can dump the rest into here, just start dumping into here, and eventually we'll get to the point where we won't even need a Crusher enchant in a group because we can actually take it away. But this isn't for group play, this one right here, so actually I'll just cancel. So that is the champion point layout. I just wanted to kind of go over that just so you guys could see how I have this set up, so you can understand that I made this for long term. So this is a solo build that is made for long term application. Now the other points, the other 40 points that you get in the green and the red, my suggestion would be once you get the next 40 points put into Ironclad, take this up to 20%, take this up to 20%. If you can, and that's it. That's all you need to worry about for the next 40 points. Over here, you can take 40 points and kind of spread them in the rest of these things where you want them. So it's really just up to you. Now, somebody's going to ask, why did I put 56 in here to give me 20% block cost reduction when I'm not using a sword and shield? The reason I did that is because I still block a lot of attacks, so I need a way to mitigate my block costs. Without running sword and shield, I don't get any extra block cost reduction. So having this there allows me to save some resources from stamina if I do block an attack. And that is it. That is the adventure build, the Warden solo build. Now, like I said, if you want to play this as a tank in a dungeon, you can tank normal dungeons with this, but I would suggest not trying to tank vet dungeons with it, unless you know the build really well and your group's okay with it. But you can tank normal dungeons with this. It's a really good build for normal dungeon like clears. So, but that's pretty much it. And that's the adventure. So I hope you guys like this build. If you guys do, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, I do have 4 more solo builds coming out this week. Please hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.